Welcome to From Potential to Powerhouse, Success Secrets from Female Leaders, where female trailblazers share their journeys and the aha moments that made all the difference. With your host, serial entrepreneur and trailblazer herself, Tracy Holland.
Thank you so much for joining me. It's Tracy Holland here from Potential to Powerhouse.
I have a dynamic powerhouse with me today. Her name is Lin Lin, and she's joining me all the way from Shanghai. And we are going to have a really interesting conversation. Lin Lin was previously a designer and an anthropologist, but I would definitely qualify her as an entrepreneur. She's a scholar and she's a cultural icon. Did you know I was going to call you that?
No, that was very kind.
So Lin Lin is co-chair CEO of CIBE, which is the China International Beauty Expo. We're going to talk a lot more about what that means, but Lin Lin and her mother are running a very large company in South Asia, and we're going to talk a little bit about why she's such a cultural icon. But she's responsible for the organization's 6 beauty and wellness shows per year. CIBE is the first and largest business-to-business beauty and wellness trade fair in Asia, and it showcases top-to-bottom industry supply chain. She's also a board member. She was nominated and successfully completed the China Leadership Program at the Aspen Institute as the youngest fellow. She has been an active speaker and a representative for China beauty industry on a global basis, and she's been on entrepreneurship panels with distinguished leaders such as Barack Obama and David Cameron. She's also published in many publications such as the China Daily, the Wall Street Journal, Fast Company, Architecture Design, Wallpaper, the New Yorker, and the New York Times. And I can attest to the fact that she's a lot of fun on top of it. So welcome. Thanks for being here today.
Thank you for having me, Tracy. It was lovely to be here and seeing you on my first day of Chinese New Year holiday.
Holy smokes. I don't know what that means quite yet. We're going to find out, but it sounds like a really good time. I want to be there some year for Chinese New Year myself. So we are going to start, Lin Lin, because I want to dive into your business and your relationship with your mother and the fact that you've built a mega business in China. And I have to tell you, from a U.S. entrepreneur's perspective, we as women in the U.S. and as entrepreneurs, we personally, I don't think really understand or see China as a place in which entrepreneurs can be successful and thrive, nor do we know China as a place where women entrepreneurs can be successful and thrive. So we're excited to talk to you today because you're going to be enlightening so many of us listeners just from your perspective of what it means to be a boss and a board member and a CEO and all the things that you do. So I'm really excited to dive into it. But I think, the thing I always like to understand is, when you were a kid, were you a bossy kid? Were you an entrepreneur when you were growing up, or what was your personality like?
My personality was very timid, actually, on the contrary. I was born with a cleft palate, so I couldn't speak. And so everything I ate came out of my nose. So I had a certain disability up till when I was almost 4, because they couldn't do the surgery until I was old enough. So my learning to communicate was a long and difficult journey. So all the subjects that I study from communication design, architecture, and anthropology, they are all the study of human beings, the human communications in different societies, how to explain their behavior and how to curate their behavior through architecture. And I think that was something that shows my lack of ability to communicate when I was younger, really facilitate the latest studies and sort of the urge to get to know people.
So when you were little and you had this cleft palate, did you know you were disabled, or did you feel like something was wrong with you?
Definitely something was wrong with me. I wasn't. My mother sent me to my grandmother. I think I was 10 months old. 10 months or 9 months old on the flight to my grandmother's, and my grandmother was my late grandmother now, was the principal of the hospital, and basically she looked after me until I had my surgery and recover from my surgery. So that was like 5 years. Yeah,
Until you were 5 years old.
yeah.
Lin Lin, I didn't know that. So you almost had, your grandmother was almost like a mother.
Oh, she was the mother.
Wow, Lin Lin. That's a lot. So when you saw your mother at 5, did you visit her frequently when you were little, or was it often? Not often.
To be honest, I don't really remember that much, but I'm going to tell you a fun but very sad story. But now I look at it very positively. So my grandmother had a picture of me, of my mother, and then she would like, your mother, this is your mother, don't forget. So every now and then I remember she took out a picture saying your mother. And then when I really saw my mother, and my grandmother asked me, who's this? And then I said to my grandmother, oh, your mother.
Wow.
Because that's what she always told me. I should point at the picture and say that your mother. So I thought her name was your mother. So
Wow.
so I think I remember suddenly this someone called your mother just burst out into tears, and then my grandmother was like, oh, don't worry about it. And I was like, did I do something wrong? I thought that was your mother. So that was a tough one, but also a something to, so a little clip in my life to show like it was, it was a difficult time for all of us, and not really anybody's fault, but it was difficult.
It's interesting for those who can't see you. You're so gorgeous. I can't imagine that was a disability that you had, because you don't, you're just gorgeous. I
Oh,
mean,
thank you. It comes back to me sometimes. It comes back to me. Sort of, I have to speak slowly because it, sometimes it's like you snap back into that moment when you were younger and not so confident, and it still comes back to me. But I learned to deal with it a lot better now, and more positive now.
so was your mom an entrepreneur when you were 5 and you were with grandma and mom came to visit? Was she an entrepreneur at that point in time?
I think my mother has always been not only an entrepreneur but also quite a rebel in the family. She was the eldest. She went to the regime as the youngest labor in Hainan during Cultural Revolution, and then she got a kidney infection. She came back to the family, and the family was like scattered different places. Her father was the previous governor and then in the prison. So my grandpa was in and out of the prison. And then my grandmother was a doctor, but was asked to work on the fields. And then she had to look after her brothers and sisters with a housekeeper. And she was always a rebel. So she came from a medicine family. So her mother and her mother's mother are all doctors. And she wanted to study Chinese traditional medicine, which is different from all of her her female models who were Western doctors. So she left her hometown and she came to Guangzhou and went to the best TCM schools, universities, and then she was categorized as as the top student actually for the professor there, and then she was writing prescriptions for the governors and leaders at the age of 19. So she was very determined, and then she met my father and was against her father's will and married my father in a completely strange city. And so basically she's a little bit like me, like yeah, same but very different in terms of ambition and and the way that she carry out her career. And then later on, after being a doctor, she decided to start with beautician and hairdressing education in the 80s. She saw an opportunity as beautician and hairdresser how to tidy up themselves, and then she basically one of the leading, if not the leading figure for the beauty industry, because she introduced lipsticks when nobody really she introduced lipsticks and masks when nobody understands what a mask does, like beauty masks in the 80s. I mean, it was unheard of. She has her own concoctions and basically started the school and education from there. She was also the writer for the educational materials, and she founded the first industry association in the 80s, and then alongside with the Canton Fair, where our previous leader Deng Xiaoping opened up the south gate of China in Guangzhou, which is Canton. So when the Canton Fair, as the first ever expo in China, China International Beauty Expo was born as the Canton Beauty Fair. That was the former name of China International Beauty Expo. It was Canton Beauty Fair at the Canton Fair Trade Ground in 1989.
So was this something frequent from the US? Did you see US? Do you remember, first of all, I guess, before we get there, do you remember being involved at that point?
So when she started, I was still at my grandmother's. I was young. I was pretty young. I was at my grandmother's. So I didn't see the show in the 80s because I was too young. And then when I first came to the show, was already in the 94, 95. And I was really young. I was like, I was still learning to speak. You know, it took me a few years to learn to speak, but I was fascinated because it was mostly supply chain, was because the South was the sort of the birthplace of production, manufacturers. So to today, more than 85 to up to 90% of the appliance and also beauty appliance, and they were produced there. So there were a lot of manufacturers, a lot of people come and do purchasing. So spring and autumn were two seasons for purchasing, procurement for B2B companies, and at the time was the largest show in China. It's like people bringing suitcases, whether you're professional beautician, hairdressers bring their suitcases to do purchasing, or you see a foreign international brands, they came in to find local producers to basically produce parts of the products, and then ship it back to their own country. So I've seen all kinds of people from, it was the only place to see a lot of people, because I remember my mother told me in the 90s, there isn't free trade. So you can't trade in US dollars or pounds or euros. Euro, I didn't think was existed back then. And it was this token that you have. So you trade with the token if you're foreigners, and then they would take the token and exchange to Chinese RMB. So that was, it was interesting because it was very early on of trading for China.
And I think it's important that we kind of put for the listeners some reference, because at that time I was a foreign policy undergrad, and I remember Bill Clinton was the president and Hillary Clinton was doing a tour in China talking about women's rights. Do you remember?
Yes.
Yeah. And that didn't go over very well.
Pardon me if this sounds very blunt, but I think she should have done more homework on where Chinese feminism, or let's say women's right history would be, because it's very different from the West, where you fight for centuries, hundreds of years for from the inheritance rights to freedom of sort of marriage and breakthrough, to even in the 90s, in the West, women finally got the voting right in the Scandinavian city. I remember one of them was there. I think Scandinavia, one of the country with the last for women to gain voting rights. So the West has a long history of fighting for women's rights. However, in China, it's completely different, because there are a little bit more than 56 tribes, like indigenous tribes in China. And a lot of them were female leading tribes. That is something that maybe she didn't know. For the long history of China, women's suppression was being perceived as part of the tradition. There was this term called 童养媳. This meant the young girl will be brought to the future husband's house to grow up with the husband, and the husband was still a toddler. And literally, this young girl will be taught and learn everything about the household, and eventually help this husband grow up and become whatever he may become. And then she runs the house, and he become that's also the king. That's how they raise the emperor also. So that is some of the history that many people don't know. And all of this, I'm not saying that women aren't suppressed or women had the equal rights from the beginning, but I do have to say that women does have a level of control in the family. But the history comes in China in 1949, when Mao set up, drafting the first basic law of China. In number 69, the term 69, where he clearly stated women enjoy the equal rights politically and economically, and also in a family, like the West, that we have to fight for years. We just had that right overnight. So no matter how critical one could, mention one could have their own opinions towards the dictator. I would say we thank him for the rights that we have, and therefore you have the equal pay, and pretty much I would say everything that we have now as a women in China to do business, we have a very good position compared to many other countries.
That's amazing, Lin Lin. I'm so glad you shared that, because as women in the US, we do not understand that getting to know you and understanding what a big company you run and what a big business you have and how many millions of people you touch every single year blew my mind. And to understand that you and your mother run this company together as entrepreneurs with such a huge business, and now it's becoming a global business, right? That's not something that I would have thought was possible for women in China today in 2021.
I wouldn't say mom and I ran the company. I think we wouldn't be able to run it with just two of us. There are a lot of women like you and me in the beauty and wellness sector, and that's something that we felt extremely fortunate, because my mother always reminded me beauty and wellness are naturally feminine, because it's about looking after people. And in a very traditional sense, where she came from, women were the one who look after themselves and others. So fundamentally, if you look at the supply chain, we have from ingredients, packaging, machinery, to end consumer products. We have medical products such as silicone for your breast enhancement or corrections, or even sex education related products such as lubricants to toys. So these are very it covers such large ranges. And I mean, when we acquire, I can give you an example. When we acquire an adult show for it's a global show for adult health, sex health. It was a lot of controversy, because there was already a sex expo. But that was a very different approach. It wasn't from a health point of view. We want to have a trade show that coming from a health perspective, because sex education and sex health has always been difficult to spoken upon in this country. And I do have to say that sex education wasn't very well designed for young people also. So I think it was really good that we have that approach, that we have the adult show came into our sector, so people can look at sex health from a wellness perspective rather than from a sex industry perspective. So I think being in this sort of all sector supply chain trading industry, that I think my mother or the company has a very good, collectively, the company has a very good foresight of how we can introduce sex health and beauty and wellness all together in a big picture for this industry.
I would say in the US, we are just as open now to being progressive around seeing sexual wellness, especially in the enjoyment for women of sexual toys, sexual wellness, being progressively available to us now over the last 4 or 5 years in mainstream retail.
Right.
So Lin Lin, your personal passion, I know you love architecture, I know you love literature, I know you love design. Was there ever a point in time in which you thought, I'm going to go in this direction career-wise, or is it expected that because of your mother's business, you're expected to step into the role of inheriting that business? And I'm asking you from your perspective in terms of your dynamic with your mom, but also just culturally speaking, are because of the one child law, right? Most kids your age they're one kid, right?
Yeah.
So if you have a successful parent who's running a big company, it's not like you can say to your brother, hey, Jerry, you're taking over because I'm going to go do architecture. So was the expectation from the family's perspective that you would step into the role that you're in, or was it something you felt passionate about?
I'm going to speak very bluntly, and I hope this doesn't sound too strong. I hated what my mother did when I was younger, because her job practically stole my mother. Didn't have a mother, really. So I started my career as a designer. I started working. I found my really good college partner that we started our company when we were 21, I think, and that company lasted for more than 10 years before I came back to this business. He was my college mate, and then we start working together in London. We set up the company in London, and we moved to Shanghai together. And then we work in numerous large campaigns for FMCG and sports companies mostly, to launch in China market. So from I think everybody at some point worked for Nike and Apple, and we were the agency for Red Bull. So we launched Red Bull Music Academy. We launched a lot of wonderful campaigns, including Speedos and also the last campaign we did was Speedos in Rio Olympics, and that wasn't that long ago. So I only came to the family business 6 years ago. And my partner later moved back to England. He's the creative director for the Guardian newspaper with 2 kids and a wife. So I'm very happy for him. And I joined the family business, preparing for the expansion in Shanghai, alongside when President Xi's project launched China International Import Expo. So it's called a CIIE convention venue. So I was asked to launch in Shanghai and later expand to Shenzhen and Beijing. So that was 2015. I started preparing for the 2016 show. And that was a huge challenge. And that was the time that I felt I had the responsibility to come back, because at the time my mother really needed help. And this is a very good opportunity for me to see how we two reconnect, how we two could work together possibly, and how I could get over the grudge of not having a mother. I'm just speaking very honestly, because I did have this hump that I couldn't get through, because I felt that I was very different. I had trouble to have very long-term relationships, also because of that. So the past 5 years, was a very good learning process to work alongside my mother, and I understood what happened. I understood how she is, and I have gained better confidence to start a family of my own. and I think that's how people grow. I think, but no, I ran away from the family business pretty much most of my life until 6 years ago. But I wanted this opportunity to reconnect and see what makes her stay in this industry and work on the same project for 31 years.
Right. And I think just to put this into context, Lin Lin, is your mom is single, right?
My father passed 4 years ago.
And does she date?
Not as far as I know so far, or maybe because it's not usual for her to publicly dating. But she's a very popular lady since young. Even my father was around. So, but she's very picky. Yeah, my father was a very good-looking man, quite popular amongst the ladies, and also a very good writer. So she's very picky. I hope that she start dating soon. So if anybody who has a brother and boyfriend husband want to be my stepdad, please do email me privately.
You're hysterical. Oh my gosh. I just try to imagine, for someone like you to be in such a powerful role that you're in and have the collective family success and the family wealth and also be single, that has its own set of complications. So how do you see yourself in the next couple of years having a family and running this business? Is the idea that you will eventually take over and she'll retire, or do you see her working until the last day?
Oh, I totally see her working to the last day because that's what my grandmother did. So, and my grandmother passed last year at the age of 93. A 93-year-old, you're probably wondering, how does a woman work till the day she passed? So my grandmother, when on her last days, she requested to go to the hospital that she worked in. And before that, she has always been working on a lot of charitable foundations. And actually, even when she wasn't out campaigning, her phone's always on because people call her for all kinds of advice. And then at her last days, she knew that she's leaving us. So she asked to go back to the hospital. And then she asked for the smallest room in the hospital because it was during COVID. And then she said she wants to be at the hospital for her last days. And then she refused to eat. She said, "Don't feed me." She has her will written down how she shall be looked after as a doctor. And then at her last days, she wouldn't answer if you call her mom or grandmother, but she will answer if you call her principal or something. People call her at work. She will wake up and then she will look at you, and that's how she passed in the hospital where she worked. So she also taught me a big lesson, how one could pass gracefully and in the place where she belongs.
Beautiful. And how in terms of your dynamic now in running the company, it sounds like you and your mom have very separate roles and responsibilities. Would you say you agree?
I agree. She keep it very separate in order to make sure that we two get along and spend some family time.
Beautiful. And your role in the company is really being kind of the brand, right? Being the front facing on the billboards, promoting the business. I see you on stage in front of thousands of people. You're so poised. You give such inspirational speaking in talks to entrepreneurs, to business leaders. And so in your next iteration, Lin Lin, of who you become as a professional, as a powerhouse woman, as a cultural icon, because I've never met someone more well dressed. It's always like I can't wait to see what Lin Lin's wearing.
Thank you. Thank you.
And all the best parties in Shanghai, all the best parties, right? All the big fashion shows. I mean, Lin Lin's in the front row. She is the person.
I don't really go to a lot of parties and a lot of shows. I used to be that it girl, but I also try to keep my profile fairly low in the recent years because I also sit on the board of government for regulatory for our chamber of commerce, because I think having a seat in as a young leader in the government, I think helps a lot of other women similar to me. And also, I don't know if you have heard animal testing. After 6 years, I think when I joined, I said, few things that I need to do, and one of the things was animal testing. And this year we have released a new law, and we established a collaboration with France, and also later on to other countries for animal testing, for cruelty-free. So I think progressively we are making differences as female leaders. And that's why I no longer had that much time to go to fashion shows and to go to openings. And I have asked the company to put down a lot of my personal portraits and a lot of my images out of the promotional system and collaterals, because I think the company shouldn't be run like a family business. It should be run by many. And I don't believe that, although I don't believe a family-run business like ours, unless we have loads of children, I don't think a family of 2 and a team of 300 could sustain the growth of our platform. So we believe in facilitating more young female leaders and young leaders on the board of the policy making department, and encourage leaders coming in to truly make a difference. Is really important. And I also want to share with you that the Chinese government are younger and younger. The teams are younger and younger, the more dynamic. And I see a lot of female who are my age doing great things. And there's nothing better to see that when you have young energies, progressive, pragmatic, fresh mind, that willing to do something, make changes. I mean, imagine changing laws, progressing laws and policies within the matter of few months to solve problems. Almost unheard of in any other government. for me anyways, in the history. So I'm grateful where I am.
You're amazing. And I think people need to know or understand your business is, 6 mega shows a year. That's not the other shows that you're carrying. And these 6, what I would call the mega shows, bring between 500,000 and 1 million attendees per show.
Actually, the largest show, we have 500,000 in 3 days. And the smaller show, we have about maybe, I think the smallest show was Shenzhen show is about 300,000 or so. So I think people are coming to learn because it's B2B. They're not just coming to shop, and we have so many conferences to share the latest regulatory changes, also technology, also progressing really fast. And there's something quite interesting in China also, the live streaming businesses, people selling online. These are complete new shows. So in fact, this year we had a new show. It's the 7th show in Christmas about live streaming industry, B2B, meaning that if you are buyer stores, online sellers, you can come and shop. You can come and talk to brands. You can go to OEM and ODM factories to produce your own brand of products or your own innovations. And so we had our Christmas show, launching the whole new industry for live streaming wholesalers and also live streaming individual sellers. The reason being that there were so many new regulations has been reinforced for live streaming. So ensure all the live streamers, bloggers are responsible for what they say, what they sell, and they also have to follow the regulations that to check all the product they're representing are legitimate. So these are something quite difficult to do since we have millions of SKUs, and also we have to help the companies that were exporting, who trying to survive when during COVID they have so many stocks that they couldn't get rid of. So we have to teach them how to build their own brands and sell through online, and give them platforms that to facilitate. So the economy are circulating internally, and people don't lose jobs. so it's not just a trading platform. I think my mother run it like a medical doctor, like more like a problem solver and a healer point of view to actively seek new ways to keep jobs for people.
And in the trajectory of building this business, Lin Lin, in China as an entrepreneur, where is your exit? Is the exit meaning all your cash and all your net worth is tied up into this asset? Is the plan eventually to sell it? Or is it that you can go public? Is there a point in time in which, is there a point in time in which you can opt to have your own liquidity and pivot into a different career? Or is that not a traditional option for an entrepreneur in China?
It is a very traditional approach in terms of exit. However, I don't think we will ever be exiting if in a sense that we are going to IPO. So in 2 years' time. So we have all the due diligence and everything. We have a new team on board for that. Reason being that we think that a public company will run better and will be more responsible and transparent for this industry, because really a family trading platform sounds oxymoronic to me. So it's kind of had to run in almost a very selfless manner. So I think a public company is our exit in a way, if you call it an exit. However, I don't think my mom will or myself will be completely sort of exit this board. However, I do have something of my own interest, which is solving social problems, and there are a couple severe social problems that are coming up. One of the most severe social problems will be our aging population that will take up 20% of our population very soon. The other one is the male consumers, the men in our society. And trust me, if we think that to empower women without empowering men is the way to go, and I can tell you that is absolutely wrong. I think it's really important to help them, to help us. So this is another thing. And third is something that people don't talk about it enough, which is about mental health in China. And I think these all can be looked after by implementing some sectors in trading to make people aware of this issue. Because in China, if your business is to do with any of these three problems, there is no way you can escape. You have to look at it. You have to face it. And if you can make money out of it, hopefully those will be the ways that we can solve this problem. So these are the three issues that I've been looking at in the past 10 years in this country.
Well, and Lin Lin, you're such an inspiration. I think that if I were to imagine you in 3, 4, 5, 10 years, you are the female. I mean, you really are this incredibly articulate hybrid between the West and the East in a way that I think for the West is so important to bridge the gap, because as we know, we rely on global trade. We rely on our relationship and the trust that we have in Asia, and China is a mega partner of a lot of product and a lot of the components and a lot of the parts and pieces of things that we all make and consume and buy every single day at the store, right? And so because we have been raised to question the media, to question the information we're given, to question the transparency between the two countries. I think in many ways you are this bridge of transparency and openness and progression for entrepreneurs and for commerce to take place in a way that I think is really important.
That's very kind. I think you're really absolutely correct in terms of the false information and lack of transparency. And there is a lot of fake news going between, not just China with America, but China with Australia and China with everyone. I don't believe that I will be like Jack Ma, that single-handedly for one whole sectors, because you can see recently all the large platforms like Alibaba and all of Amazon are all under investigation for monopoly. This is not our goal at all, actually. I actually want you. I want people like you. I want men and women like us together to do this. I think something that you may people often neglect. China stand for China Republic, like People's Republic of China. People's Republic is not a person's republic. If we were truly understand, apart from a totalitarian approach of solving problem pragmatically, especially during COVID, you will also observe the dynamics of the people that willing to speak and willing to share when you come here. And I can't wait to receive you when you come here, because we have very dynamic people here to be able to represent the China story well through working. I think a lot of concern about respecting the contract, because there is a lot of history between the two countries or other countries with China regarding contractual dispute. But contracts are text on paper. We write on text on paper. And we are a nation or the history of thousands of years based on the law of change, meaning that whatever you put on paper can be interpreted differently. It's like the Bible, like the Quran, like all teachings of religion. There are different kinds of interpretations, even just based on one contract. So it's all about negotiating, communicating. Without communication, even it's black and white, it could be dispute from page 1 to page n. So I really encourage and appreciate your effort of running this podcast, because it facilitates communication, facilitates conversations between people who are extremely different, not just the same, but different, and bring us together to be able to agree on something that we could come to a decision and work together without thinking that, oh, I'm worried about I'm concerned about our differences. And I would say, I'm concerned the challenges that we face together, but not the differences that we have, because that's what made us beautiful at the first place.
Well, Lin Lin, for those who are listening who want to see a visual of you, they can hop to our YouTube channel, Potential to Powerhouse, and see this video there. But if someone wants to follow you on social media, what is the best way they can reach you?
I have an Instagram account, but it's private. So if you want to add me, do let me know you're from P2P. So I'm at Lin Lin Says GFG.
And if they want to follow CIBE, how would you recommend that?
You can follow China International Beauty Expo on LinkedIn and also on Instagram, China Beauty since 1989.
Perfect. And I cannot wait to have you in LA where we can host you here. And I cannot wait to join you in Shanghai. I definitely want a couple of Lin Lin nights out on the town.
Yes, I will. I'm looking forward to that. And I do miss you, Tracy, and I do miss our gatherings. And this is Chinese New Year. I wish you all have a wonderful New Year, and please do call me, talk to me.
I will.
Whenever you have time, and I hope you know that you have a friend here always.
Thank you. Happy New Year. I'm so excited. I wish I could be there to celebrate New Year.
I hope so. Next year, maybe. And you can come to my family house.
Definitely. Definitely. Well, you have a beautiful day. And I just want to say thank you so much for sharing your heart and your successes and your brilliance with us.
Thank you for tuning in to From Potential to Powerhouse, Success Secrets from Female Leaders with your host, Tracy Holland.